There's even another sheet that says find your healthy eating style, and it can tell you exactly what kinds of foods that you want to choose from so that you can build a shopping list, or you can build a menu from those foods and then turn it into a shopping list. So it really makes it simpler to know just how much and of what kinds of foods your best choices could come from.
As part of its effort to help Americans make healthy food choices, and in honor of March being National Nutrition Month, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has announced a new campaign to help simplify the nutrition information we see every day. The initiative, Start Simple with MyPlate, provides ideas and tips from the 5 MyPlate food groups that can easily be incorporated into our busy lives to improve our health and well-being over time. On today's Sound Living, taking healthy eating one step at a time. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. K-State Research and Extension Nutrition Specialist Sandy Procter says USDA's Start Simple with MyPlate initiative is a pretty straightforward campaign.
This is Center for Nutrition Policy and Promotion, and it's a good group. They're the ones that help us learn how to apply that dietary guidance that comes to us in the form of the dietary guidelines every 5-10 years. And the tools that are designed, like MyPlate, are really what help us as consumers really understand how those guidelines should be put into day-to-day use.
And we're finding from some of the research that has been done that they are actually proving that following the MyPlate and getting that knowledge to the people works because we're seeing some improvements.
Absolutely. And you can just say this is one place where we're showing that the research has turned into the guidance, and then the research shows that is working. A good example of that is MyPlate, and before it, MyPyramid, which is really the tool that has been developed from the current set of dietary guidelines. So each time those dietary guidelines come out, the tool, in this case, MyPlate, is reviewed to make sure that it really still embodies that work that is the current dietary guidance.
What we're looking at here is really kind of 6 things that they focused on in terms of the starting simple. And the first one is just to focus on whole fruits.
That emphasizes the positive thing to do and tells us to really take away from what we might have done before, like juices. We know that juices are not inherently a problem, but they can be, and they can be too much. And what they do is give us the carbohydrate, the calories in a liquid form without that fiber and some of the other benefits that come from eating the whole piece of fruit. And so we know that that's one form of a healthy food that's been more processed that then can actually be less positive for us as we go forward thinking about nutrition.
I also like the fact that they kind of gave a few tips on how you can add those into things that you're already doing. If you're having breakfast, add some fruit with your cereal or your pancake.
Absolutely. And just consider how you can use whole fruits as an accompaniment to anything. Add whole fruits to maybe you have a small salad or something, or add, you're going to have a snack and it's a few crackers or something. Have a few grapes or something with it too. Just think of ways throughout the day that you can really add some whole fruit to your diet and think about it as the form of your snack if that maybe wasn't something you were doing before. Maybe
one of the big things we lack is vegetables, and they're saying not only eat more vegetables, but vary the type that you're eating.
Yes, it used to just be the message was that eat more vegetables, and that's still a very good message. But the last set of dietary guidelines has really broken it down and said eat more of those dark green vegetables, and especially those orange ones and red ones, those really bright, vibrant colors have a lot to offer us. So if we're going to eat vegetables, make sure that we vary the colors of them and choose some of those ones that really have a lot to offer us nutrition.
And again, that's another thing that can be added to some of the meals that we typically make.
It's true. You can take, say, a bell pepper and add it to spaghetti sauce, or use it as a stick for a dip instead of, something that's maybe not as healthful. You can use it as part of a salad, or just something to really brighten up another food on your plate. But think about ways to add vegetables that maybe you haven't before. Really push to include those in ways that you maybe haven't tried before.
One of the things I also found interesting was the fact that they want us to vary the proteins that we take in. And this is not just meat. A lot of times people think that protein is meat, but there are other things that we can be adding to our diets as well.
It's true. There are a wide variety of foods that give us protein, and that eating that variety of protein is helpful in many ways. We know that we're encouraged to have fish or seafood at least a couple times a week because it gives us a different set of nutrients that really are healthful, but still a really excellent source of protein. And while we may have a serving or mix some lean beef or other type of red meat into a food to make sure that we get the nutrients that are available from that, there are a number of foods that are plant-based that give us healthful protein too. So having a variety and really looking at what different kinds of protein we can include in our diet is really healthful.
And a variety of beans that we can work into there as well.
Oh, I think, and now I'm risking sounding like a true dietitian, but I think beans are really one of the most versatile and really best sources of food for us, hands down. They have carbohydrate, but they also are high in protein. They're plant-based, so you get fiber, you get a lot of nutrients. They're filling, they're inexpensive, they're easy to prepare. You can get them in several different varieties, whether it's a bag of beans that can last for a long time in your cupboard, or you can have canned. Those can be helpful too. So they really have a lot of variety themselves, and they allow us to do a lot of healthful things when we're preparing foods for ourselves and our families.
I think a lot of people are getting the message about adding whole grains to the diet, and there are a number of ways to do that. It's not just limited to bread.
Oh, absolutely. One of the easiest ways that I think you can add whole grains is to look for places that offer brown rice or white rice as a choice, or preparing brown rice for yourself is a real easy way that I like to do that. And I've noticed that people who might be picky eaters oftentimes don't even notice the difference if they're just consuming what you've prepared. And so I think that's a really good way to add a whole grain to your diet. And another one that's similar to that is whole grain pasta. It really is not very noticeable. I started years ago with whole grain macaroni, and it doesn't look different after it's cooked, but you're there knowing that it's 100% whole wheat or whole grain, and really has some of those benefits that wouldn't be in a more processed version.
I know when we go to the store, we're going to see boxes and boxes and boxes of rice. We're also going to see loaves and loaves of bread. How do we know that we're actually getting the 100% whole grain?
Well, it's important to look on the label and read the label. Usually something that is 100% whole grain will say that very clearly on the label because that's something they're probably touting and that's something they're proud of. But it's also on that ingredient list. That first ingredient needs to say 100% whole wheat or something along that line. That first ingredient is going to tell you whether it's a whole grain or if it's a mixture or a processed grain. And if that first word is enriched white flour, you know it's not a whole grain because enriched flour comes from white flour that's had some nutrients added back.
And this might be an instance where you might want to look for a store brand because it is going to be less expensive because sometimes the whole grain or the whole wheat tends to be a little bit more expensive.
I think that's a good example of ways that using all that label reading and learning about those brands and finding which ones have something to offer, but then also being sure that you check that label on a regular basis because they can change without our realizing it.
Another thing they want us to do is move to low-fat or fat-free milk or yogurt, and that's pretty easy to do.
I think so. There's so many choices, between full fat and skim. And so anywhere along that continuum, moving toward low fat might be something that works really easily into your plan. It's going to save you calories. There is research that shows that the fat from milk products is not all bad. And so some of that has got some real positive aspects to it too. But going from, say, a whole milk to 2% or 1% or even 0.5% is going to really save calories, but still put some of those beneficial nutrients from the fat into your diet.
And of course, that yogurt, you can mix that with fruit, you can mix it with nuts, so you can also add another layer of texture and protein.
And it can substitute for some higher fat ingredients in your diet. For example, there are recipes that will use a plain yogurt in place of sour cream, It makes a nice topping for things where you might use sour cream or something higher fat. It can mix into recipes where you might use some cream cheese or sour cream. So sometimes using yogurt as an ingredient is also going to give you added nutrients, that calcium and phosphorus and all those great nutrients that come from those dairy products, but save you some of the extra added calories. And usually that's where the problem lies with us with calories, is some of those hidden sources of calories.
In addition to the things we're supposed to be adding or doing more of, there are some things that we should be doing less of. And a lot of that always deals with drinking less soda, taking in less sodium, saturated fats, and of course added sugars.
Right. And some of those are just still revealing themselves to us. They just recently came out with the new dietary reference intakes, and most of us still get too much salt. And we need to be careful. They have actually created a new category that is showing us a level that we shouldn't exceed, or will move toward causing or adding to the risk of chronic disease. And so with salt, that's particularly telling. And so we aren't to go above 2,300 milligrams of salt a day, and most of us get more than that. And so finding ways to reduce salt is really important. And we can start with simply being extremely careful with the salt shaker, but it goes beyond that. So many foods are made with extra amounts of salt that it really is up to us to be careful in our selection and choose foods that have less salt added.
We can do that by reading the label. We can also do this by fixing more of our meals at home.
You've got it. That's really the solution, is you choose what goes in those recipes that you make. A good example of this is a way I try to cook when I make something like chili, and it uses in my recipe lots of canned foods, but I can control the amount of salt by making sure that I have no salt added tomatoes, and that my beans, canned beans, if I go that route, also have no salt added. Again, my recipe uses tomato sauce or a tomato blend juice, and both of those are available with no salt added. So if I choose carefully, I can really control the amount of salt in my recipes, and that's really, I think, the responsibility that each of us needs to make, because salt is added freely, liberally, and it is up to us to really control it, to take control of our health.
As part of this new Start Simple plan, there's also, we both found on the website, something really interesting where you can enter some of your basic information, and it will give you how many calories you should be having a day and give you some suggestions as for how you can do those following the MyPlate recommendations.
Well, I think it's really a great example of, the person that says, well, yes, I know, I need to, and then fill in the blank. Eat more whole grains and eat less salt, but I just really don't know how to go about it. And so you go into this website, this ChooseMyPlate.gov, and it's going to help you put into practice a specific piece for you. For example, I typed in my age, my sex, my activity level, my height and my weight, and it tells me that I need 2,200 calories. Then it gives me a plan that breaks down how many fruits and vegetables and grains and protein and dairy I need each day to come out at 2,200 calories. So it really takes a lot of that effort and mystery out of it. And not only that, there's even another sheet that says find your healthy eating style, and it can tell you exactly what kinds of foods that you want to choose from so that you can build a shopping list, or you can build a menu from those foods and then turn it into a shopping list. So it really makes it simpler to know just how much and of what kinds of foods your best choices could come from.
And this is just another one of those tools in the toolkit to kind of help people move along and improve their nutrition.
Yes, and it's not just nutrition. At the very bottom of this MyPlate plan, it says, be active your way. Children 6 to 17 years old should move 60 minutes a day, and adults should be physically active at least 2.5 hours per week. So it's not just about how much or how little we eat, but we also need to keep ourselves in motion too.
That's K-State Research and Extension Nutrition Specialist Sandy Procter. More information about this new healthy eating initiative is available at ChooseMyPlate.gov. You can also find information at all county and district extension offices. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.